Hey, real quick before we start the episode, I want to share something very special with you, something I'm super excited about. Very recently, I've started a group coaching mentorship program called Powerful Writers Magical Novels. In this group coaching mentorship, I help writers build their novels from the ground up. We figure out the big message of your novel, the character arc of your protagonist, the plot, the world building, and so much more. And then I teach all of the skills that a writer needs in order to write a great novel. And after that, we literally build the novel together over time. We do this in community. It gives writers the support and accountability that they need to actually make their novel a reality. What I really love about this program is that I am bottling what I do with my private clients and giving it to more writers at a much more affordable price. If this sounds like something that would be helpful to you on your writerly journey, please take a moment to sign up for a group coaching mentorship chat with me. It's 30 minutes, and we just talk about your story, your strengths, and the obstacles you face as a writer. I tell you a little more about the program, and then we figure out if the program is right for you. Okay, so super quick, go grab a chat and let's talk about it. One of the first questions that writers ask me when we start working together is some version of, how long will it take me to write my first novel? Can I get it done in 3 months or 6 months or a year? Although there is no one-size-fits-all answer here, in this episode, we're going to deep dive into those questions and find out how long it really takes the average debut author to write their first novel. Hello, and welcome to the Speculative Fiction Writing Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, Heather Davis. I'm a book coach, developmental editor, and fellow storyteller. And this is the show that's all about how to brainstorm, write, edit, publish, and sell a powerful speculative fiction novel, and maybe just change the world too. A few years ago, I started working with a really ambitious writer who wanted to know exactly how long it would take to finish her debut novel. Exactly how many months? Could I offer guarantees? She'd been doing a lot of reading on the topic and a lot of perusing the promises of some other writing coaches, and she was pretty sure that with some help, she could crank out that first novel in under a year. She wanted me to confirm that. And what I told her might surprise you, but it might also help you get a more realistic idea of how long it takes to write a powerful novel. A novel that draws readers in and changes them. A novel that not only goes out into the world and does well, but one that also goes out into the world and does good. Writing a great novel, one that changes the way readers think and feel, is a really hard task. And it doesn't happen by accident. You need to dig down into what it means to be human, whether you're writing literary fiction or speculative fiction. But why is this so difficult? Well, because it's not just about sitting down at a keyboard and typing words. It's about crafting the deep message of your novel until you find something universal. It's about developing a dynamic character arc for your protagonist, curating their backstory, creating an interesting and believable supporting cast, world building, and developing a well-structured plot that meets the expectations of the readers while still surprising them. But it doesn't end there either. You also need to develop your craft, the techniques and skills that you'll use to write your novel. Things like POV, showing and telling, interiority, how to integrate backstory without info dumping, how to move time, suspense, tension, subtext, dialogue, and so much more. Finally, you need to deeply track the cause and effect logic of your novel, dovetail plot and character arc expertly, and hone that ever-elusive author voice that is hard to develop but easy to detect when missing. Yeesh, right? But don't worry. The process of writing your first great novel should be exciting and rewarding in a way that few other things are. Yes, it requires grit and determination, flexibility, and a willingness to be vulnerable. But when you're done, you have a novel that you're proud of. The story that's been living in your head for so many years is finally real and solid and in your hands. But seriously, I know you are still wondering, how long will writing a novel like that really take? How many drafts does a writer really need to have in order to produce a novel that works? Well, again, there is no one size fits all here, but I will tell you how it typically works with my clients. An author's debut novel, if it's written with an eye towards making it a great novel worthy of rereading, takes about 3 to 4 years to write.
Yep, it's true. And I have seen very few exceptions to that general timeline in all my years of coaching. So, what actually happens during those 3 to 4 years? How exactly does the process work? To find out, let's explore that process as it typically unfolds with the writers I work with. The first 2 to 3 months are usually a busy and exciting time for writers as they hone the message of their novel, develop their characters, and begin to build the first version of their plot, and find out what it really means to work with a coach. What they might not have realized about working with a coach is that there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of brainstorming. There are a lot of times when a coach will ask questions. They will help you dig down to the deep level why, and they will not settle for anything less than what feels authentically true for your story. And honestly, that takes a little while to get used to. But once the writer adjusts to it, they love it because it will really draw out the most meaningful parts of what they want to say.
Okay, let's move on. Around month 3 or 4, the writer typically starts writing the first scenes of their novel. It's pretty rough at first because they have so much to learn about the art and science of crafting a narrative. Most of what they create during this time will probably be rewritten, but that's absolutely fine because none of their work is wasted. It is all in service of their growth as a writer and in service of them uncovering what their novel really wants to be. Interestingly, that can be very different from what they thought when they first crafted their plot. During this time, the writer feels so excited because finally, they feel like they're not alone on the journey anymore. They have a cheerleader, a brainstorming partner, an expert to answer all of their questions. Things start clicking. This is a time of unparalleled growth as a writer. Their writing literally improves by leaps and bounds each time they submit work, each time they get feedback, each time they think more deeply about their narrative.
Eventually, the writer reaches the end of the first year. And somewhere around the end of that first year, the writer is about 30 to 50% done with their first draft, and their writing has drastically improved and deepened. Their author voice is beginning to take shape, and when they look back at their first few shaky chapters, they are absolutely amazed at how far they've come.
Suddenly, it all feels real and possible. They can see the writer they will someday become, and they can see the finished novel that their little manuscript will someday be. During year 2 and the beginning of year 3, they keep writing and rewriting, and brainstorming, and thinking and rethinking, until finally they type the end on the first draft. And they feel so freaking excited because they did it. They finally wrote their novel. But they also know that the work isn't done, because somewhere around the halfway point of their novel, they figured out what it really, really wanted to be. And now it's time to go back and shape it into that beautiful thing. So they draft an updated plot and character arc. Then they set to work. Maybe they start completely over with a blank white page. Or maybe they just start snipping and clipping and adding and subtracting from the draft they already have. Either way, they feel a little tired, but also a lot invigorated. And best of all, they feel like they are really beginning to understand the process of writing a novel. It's a formula, and they finally know its ingredients and measurements. After that, the next year or so is spent writing the second draft. And when they type the end this time, it feels solid and strong and powerful. It means something. It has a message. It's at this stage that it really begins to sink in that they're almost done. The only thing left to do, the final stage, is the cleanup stage. This is what I think of as the third draft. So, for the next 3 to 6 months, depending on the writer, they comb through the manuscript meticulously to make sure there are no logic slips or threads that have been left dangling. They line edit until their sentences and paragraphs are perfect. And eventually, before they're really ready, because we're never really ready, they decide that it's done enough.
Which means it's time to give it to 3 or 4 beta readers and get feedback. Finally, once they've made any last-minute changes that need to be made, it's time to have the manuscript copy edited. And once that's done, it's time to actually send it out into the world so it can do well and do good. Maybe they self-publish it, or maybe they submit it to a small press, or maybe they send it off to an agent hoping to get a traditional publishing deal. Either way, it doesn't really matter because they have done it. They have written their novel. It's the very best novel they are capable of writing, and they are so proud of it. Now it gets to go off and have a life of its own. It gets to have readers, and it gets to be in conversation with other great novels. And really, as writers, that's all we can ever hope for.
But here's the most incredible thing that happens as a byproduct of this work. A writer doesn't just write their debut novel. They learn how to be a writer, how to be an author. And these skills follow them through all of their other books. So, yes, the first novel may take 3 to 4 years to write, or maybe more than that. But at the end, the writer knows how to write a novel so that the next novel will take much less time and still be just as strong and just as powerful. Essentially, they have condensed the 10 or 20 or 30 years that it would take a writer to figure all the stuff out on their own into a much smaller period of time while still producing incredibly high-level work. So, in my experience, that is what writing a debut novel looks like. Yes, it's a longish process, but it's also fun and filled with so much joy and so much growth.
One of the things that the writers I work with so often tell me is that our coaching sessions are their favorite part of the week. It's literally the thing they look forward to the most because they get to talk about their story. They get to brainstorm ideas. They get to live in the world that they've created. And for a writer, that's a pretty cool thing to do. So yes, your debut novel will take a while, but that's okay because the process should be an enjoyable one. You should take the pressure off of writing the novel. Honestly, writing is probably never going to be your sole source of income. Even if you're a New York Times bestseller, it probably won't replace your day job. That's just not how writing works. So instead of putting all of that pressure on it, let it be the thing that feeds your soul. Let it be the thing that deepens your thinking and deepens what you want to say about the world.
Real quick, before you go, if the idea of working with a book coach sounds like something that might be helpful to you in your writing journey, please check out the link in the show notes. I have just started a group mentorship program called Powerful Writers, Magical Novels, and I would love for you to schedule a chat with me to see if the program might be something good for you and your novel. All right, go check out that link in the show notes, and I really look forward to talking to you. Also, if you know a writer who you think might benefit from the program, please share the link with them as well. The more, the merrier. Okay, writers, I hope this episode was helpful. Please take a moment to schedule a mentorship chat and to subscribe to the podcast. It's a great way to show your support and let me know you're interested in hearing more. Until next time, keep writing, keep dreaming, and remember, the world needs your stories right now. So don't you dare give up on your novel or yourself. I'll talk to you again soon.